Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Art with Andrea. I am Andrea, aka Mrs. C, and today I'm going to teach you all how to draw a building using two-point perspectives. Now, two-point perspective drawing, it's a method where two vanishing points are used that sit on either end of a horizon line that's made on a surface. I recently uploaded a video where I teach my 6th grade students how to create a hallway using one-point perspective. Now, one-point perspective is very useful when you want to create an image of an interior scene, like of a hallway or of a room. However, two-point perspective is really great when you want to depict a three-dimensional area or object that is being viewed from an angle. One example of this is maybe you want to create an image of a building or a house as viewed from the corner of a sidewalk. Now, two-point perspective is really great for depicting depth, scale, and realism. The most significant element of art for this project is space. For those of you who are not familiar with the element of space or did not watch my last video, space is where you create a sense of depth and being in a three-dimensional area on a flat 2D surface or through the use of sculpture in three-dimensional objects. Two-point perspective was said to be created as early as 1525 by German painter Albert Dürer. He was studying perspective by looking at the works of Piero and Pacioli. For this assignment that I'm going to be giving to my 7th graders, you need to create a three-dimensional building on a piece of paper using two-point perspective. For this example that I'm going to be creating in my video, I'm going to go with the theme of Halloween, which is just around the corner, and create a haunted-looking house with pumpkins and graves and also with trees. However, I am not expecting my students to do something that's Halloween-themed. You could do something futuristic. You could just make a beautiful house or some modern-looking buildings. However, it needs to be a building, and you need to be using two vanishing points, one on either end. And I'm going to be looking at some good details and colors, but those are all your choice. Now, everybody should get a piece of scrap paper to start before they move on to their final paper. You're going to need pencils and rulers, also sharpeners and erasers if you do not already have those handy. Find a comfortable place to work, and let's get started. Now, you're going to be drawing not only a horizon line, but you're also going to be drawing a vertical line. Both lines need to go straight through the middle of your paper. I measured the height of the paper as well as the width, so I could be sure that those lines go right through the middle. And also make sure that both lines are straight and hold down your rulers so that you don't create a wiggly line for the horizon line or for the vertical line. Next, you're going to create a diamond in the middle of your paper by connecting each of the two vanishing points to the top and bottom of the vertical line that you made straight through the middle of your paper. Next, you need to decide where you want the bottom point of the building or the corner of it to be and connect the corner to each of the vanishing points. Next, draw vertical lines to create the sides of your building. I'm going to draw a staircase leading up to where my front door will be for my house. I'm going to draw a couple of short vertical lines, but when it comes to that first line that makes the top of the step, I'm going to connect it to the vanishing point that's on that side. However, you may notice that when it comes to drawing the sides of the steps, I'm going to use the vanishing point on the opposite side to make that look a little more realistic. So you're going to go back and forth between these vanishing points when you are making things like boxes or other details that are shaped like rectangles. Now I'm going to draw the front door at the top of my steps by creating those vertical lines, and then I'm going to draw the top of my door by connecting it to the vanishing point that is on the same side. Now I'm going to start creating windows on my house. First, what I do is I draw the vertical lines that will create the sides of each window. Remember that the closer that the windows get to that corner, the bigger they're going to get. Meanwhile, the farther or closer they get to each vanishing point, the smaller that these windows and details are going to get. And then once I have made the sides of each window, I'm going to use my ruler to create the lines that line up with the vanishing point. Because I want to make a haunted looking house, I erased part of some of the windows and I drew planks over them to make them look boarded up and a little more spooky. You do not have to do this. I didn't even use the vanishing points for guidelines here, but if you want to add extra details like this, that is absolutely fine, as long as when it comes to the windows or doors or some other details, you do use the vanishing point for reference. Right here, I decided where the bottom of my roof would be. And then after I was finished with that, I decided where I wanted the midpoint of my roof to be. I made a little mark right there because what I was going to do was take my ruler and connect the vanishing point on the right side with that midpoint. Next, I added an extension to my haunted house. Keep in mind that whenever you draw extensions to the house or building that you're creating, you need to draw the vertical lines and then make sure that all the lines that would be horizontal, they line up with the vanishing point on the side that you need. Because it's all on the left side, I kept using the vanishing point that's on the left side when creating the tops and bottoms of the frames, also creating the bottom or the top of the roof. And also notice that when I started making frames for my other windows, I used the vanishing point on the side where the windows were. You don't have to do what I'm doing over here on the right side of my haunted house. I decided to make a tree. First, I drew the curved sides of the tree trunk, and because I wanted to look a little spooky, I didn't make the trunk perfectly smooth. I drew some curving, waving lines and made it a little bumpy. And then after I made the sides of the branch kind of opened up in a V shape, I drew a U-shaped line that showed the inside of the split where the branches start to divide. After that, I just made some branches that spread out and then made those branches split into Ys, and then they broke into more Ys. Something that I think is really effective when you want to make some spookier looking trees is that you make the lines a little more wavy rather than smooth. And then I'm going to draw some curved lines to make the roots that are going to be buried in the ground. This is something I'm also going to be using when making some little bushes around my house. I started making tombstones right here. Now, when making the longer sides of this tombstone that's on the right side of my paper, I used the vanishing point that was on the right side. But when making the smaller edges, I used the vanishing point that was on the left side. Then once again, I drew those little vertical lines to make the sides. But then once again, I started to go back to the vanishing points. Once you have drawn all the details that you want in your 2-point perspective drawings, be sure to start outlining with Sharpie. But don't rush to that point. Want to make sure that everything is just how you want it before you go over with permanent marker. Now, I drew some pumpkins along my sidewalk. First, what you do to make a pumpkin is then you're going to draw some half ovals that are peeking out from behind either end of the oval you have in the middle. These are going to turn to the sides of the pumpkin. They don't all have to look perfect and they don't all have to look straight because pumpkins, they rarely ever have a perfectly round shape. Next, I'm going to draw some lines that start from the sides of the top of the pumpkin and they curve up to start to make the stem. Now, for this stem, I wanted to make one with a long vine, so I made kind of a hook shape, made it curve down to make a vine that's coiling. And then I made 2 curved lines to make the very pointed tip or end of the vine. I drew some football shapes coming out along the vine and then drew a line down the middle. After you have finished drawing all the details you want and outlining them with Sharpie, whether it's a bold Sharpie or a very fine pointed Sharpie, grab whatever coloring supplies it is you want to use and make sure that you have good craftsmanship. I don't have any expectations for the color scheme. It doesn't have to be spooky Halloween colors or just cool colors or warm colors. I want you to choose whatever colors you want, but I want to see really nice solid colors, cheese holes filled. If there's any white spaces, they need to be left with intention so it doesn't look like you were just coloring really, really quickly and sloppily. And I just want to see a lot of care in your image. It has to really show that you enjoyed putting this together.